Yep.
So what did you all think about this sort of this reveal that we're not quite there yet when they connect the dots, but we're sort of beginning to connect these dots about the paradox. What did you all think about this scene where it's like this anomaly in the future causes life in the past to never start? Like, did you like the sort of storytelling technique here? Are you not a fan of the whole time paradox?
I don't have a problem with it, but it's like with all the time paradoxes, he wouldn't have really done it in the past, but it did sort of start in the future, didn't it? So it doesn't make sense, but who's to say it couldn't have happened because of obviously time paradoxes. But yeah, if you're taking, like Doc says in the future, that time is running from A to B on this line, it wouldn't sort of make sense. It shouldn't have happened.
Right.
But no, it's it's all about these time paradoxes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got to say, I know we're not discussing it, but that Marvel one, oh my God, I still haven't been able to get my head around that yet.
I know.
I still haven't understood it at all, and it's really winding me up. I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. Every single film that's ever been made, you can't change it.
I know. It's very convenient explanation of time travel. So.
Or again, you can just look at it as though Q has just invented the whole thing to push them. You know, like he did with that when he introduced them to the Borg, he was pushing them to the next, just pushing them to understand, you know, what was at stake with them traveling in the universe, because they didn't really know anything. All these cultures, they had no idea about the Borg. So he just seemed like he was just constantly trying to teach them in a way. And this was just another lesson I felt that he was giving them.
Yeah, I could thought about it like either way. Like you could have been just made up the whole thing, or this paradox that I don't really understand. I mean, I understand what it means, but it's like, how could that happen?
Yeah, listen, I mean, people way smarter than me, I'm sure, could explain it very clearly. But I mean, that's the whole point of a paradox, is that it's something that should not be possible. It's an impossible thing, but it happens anyway. You know, the whole idea of like in the future you cause this thing, which then gets bigger in the past, which stops humanity from forming. But then that meant that you shouldn't even be here to begin with, to do the thing that does the thing that does the thing. Like, so it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the greatest time travel movie of all time, Back to the Future, you know, he goes to the past and it ends up he ends up erasing his future, sort of. I mean, you know, he fixes it so then he can go back to the future.
But that's sort of logical, and you can see how it happens. He's made a change in the past, so it's now diverted off into this new timeline, and that makes absolute sense. But then when you're sort of saying, well, this happened in the future and it's affecting the past, it's like, whoa, okay, well, how the hell does that happen, sort of thing. But that's dependent on time being linear, obviously.
Exactly. And like, as we understand time, it is linear. So like, in theory, if you go back to the past, like, our understanding is that if you change, you know, if you went back 20 years and stopped yourself from, I don't know, meeting your husband or meeting your significant other, well, then that in theory should change your future, that you shouldn't be married, you shouldn't have the kids that you have. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. In theory, that's how we think time travel works. And Back to the Future is, you know, it's gospel. We all know that. So that's how it worked, everybody.
No arguments from me.
So, okay, to get off Star Trek for a second and onto time travel. So, what if, you know, because it's like, oh, if time travel eventually becomes possible, how come we don't ever meet time travelers or that kind of thing? It's like,
I don't know. I've seen a lot of articles lately.
Yeah. Like, oh, right. you know, so once they can legitimately prove it and don't have like a tablet from 2005 or whatever. I don't even know if they made them then, but that one guy with the YouTube. Anyway, sorry. Like, maybe it's because it does splinter off into a different timeline. So there are other things that are happening, and then they're stuck there, and they can't come back to their time and all. Anyway,
maybe. I mean, or maybe, you know, when you see that crazy person on the street talking to themselves, I mean, maybe that's a time traveler who's trying to work out the, you know, the calculations to get back. I don't know. Like, although, or we accept the fact that the people who wrote The Simpsons are time travelers because they seem to have predicted everything that's happening. No, so maybe they're time travelers.
I know.
Just psychic. That's all.
But mind you, Back to the Future sort of did as well. Look at Biff Tannen. I mean, we all know who he was based sort of on.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, he's running for president, isn't he? Back to the Future.
I totally had thought that before I heard that was where he was.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But The Simpsons, that's just freaky. I've seen that. I know exactly what you're referencing there, and that's just ridiculous.
It is.
That is quite. It's great. Very scary.
Alrighty, so we're back to the past, not the very far past, which is 3.5 billion years ago, but we're in the past. In main engineering, they're discussing how they can penetrate the anomaly to scan it. Data says...
Are they going to get consent from this anomaly? That's all. Sorry.
I mean, they should, because clearly there has been lack of consent in this whole episode. I mean, also, too, I don't know, why did Beverly tell Picard, like, the detailed way that Alyssa lost her baby? Have you ever heard of HIPAA Act? Like, you shouldn't be sharing private health information. I mean, unless it doesn't affect the rest of the crew, like...
No,
but he's captain, isn't he? So it's he needs to know everything that's going on in the ship.
I don't even agree with they're like fraternizing, you know, like rules because they have none. You know, it's like yes, the captain can date whoever he wants, you know, on the ship, and you know, anyway.
Yeah, it is a little bit fast and loose with the fraternized.
I worked at a retail store where I couldn't hang out with my supervisor outside of the store, and if we wanted to hang out, all of us, everyone had to be invited, whether they all showed up or not. But we had to invite everyone, so then it would be like an actual official outing. And now that I don't work there anymore, a bunch of us always get together so that, you know, because one of us that doesn't work there can always invite whoever we want.
That's really weird.
Yeah, and it's funny how your place had more rules established about fraternizing than the Enterprise does, apparently.
Well, thank God for Riker, because he would just be in such a bad way.
It's so true.
Riker would be so lonely.
It's true. So data says that in theory, a tomographic imaging scanner could penetrate the anomaly, but it has not been invented yet. It's only a theory at the Daystrom Institute. Well, flash to the present, guess what they have on board? A tomographic imaging scanner.
I did love that bit.
That was, I guess from 7 years, they were able to go from theory to practical application. That's pretty efficient.
Hey,
so
look how far cell phones go in 7 years in
that's
our time frame. So
that's
just
a great
imagine hundreds of years in the future.
That's a very great point. It's like every year or two there's a new iPhone out, and it's like, wow, they did that in a year? Holy cow. But you're absolutely right. So they have a tomographic imaging scanner. Luckily, they have it on board. Data does scan the anomaly and finds that there are 3 pulses converging in the center of the anomaly. They all appear to be coming from the Enterprise, but at different times. So here we are at the crux of the time paradox, and it's all starting to come together. We jump to the future. We're in 10 forward. Riker, Beverly, Geordi, Data, they're all having a drink. And Worf is all alone at the bar. not invited to the party. We find out that basically him and Riker, they haven't spoken to each other in like 20 years. And it's because at some point in this timeline, Deanna died. At the funeral, Riker tried to talk to Worf. Worf was like, I don't think so. I don't want to talk to you. And it was because Worf felt that Riker kept him and Deanna from getting, like, really pursuing their relationship and getting together as a couple. And, Riker's like, who, me? No! And everyone's like, but did you, though? Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I kind of did. But, I thought that this was kind of a sad scene, where it's like in the future, not the whole crew doesn't like talk to each other because Worf and Riker have this split between them over Deanna. And, even Data says, I don't think Counselor Troy would want you to be this way, but they can't seem to get past it. They can't seem to forgive each other and talk to each other again. So now here comes Picard. He wanders in looking insane again. And he's trying to explain to Riker this time paradox, but he doesn't really have the words to say it. It's Data who puts it all together and explains that Picard has created an eruption of anti-time in the future, and that if they go back to the Devron system now, they will probably see the formation, the beginning of this anomaly. Excuse me. And we get the scene that you were talking about earlier, Kat, where like finally Beverly's like, oh, I guess this is a real thing that's happening. Yeah. And you're not just an insane old man. And so again, they decide to go back to the Devron system, and Riker tells Worf, hey, to
the Devron system.
Going back to the Devron system. I know. If there was a nickel for every time Picard was like, the Devron system, like, we'd all be really rich. But Riker does tell Worf, we could use your help. And I thought that was a nice little olive branch. And Worf, takes it. He gets up and he joins them on the bridge. Still in the future, they return to the Devron system and they do find the anomaly. It's very small here in the future, and they realize that they need to shut down the tachyon pulses in the other two time periods. They think that this will collapse the rupture, which Picard does it in the other two time periods, but there's no change. The anomaly still exists. So now what do? Well, they come up with this plan of going into the anomaly and making a static warp shell to repair the rupture. Again, this is over my head, but I'm sure that this is a theory that exists somewhere out there, and someone could probably tell you all about it. But this is about as complicated as I can get with it. So in the past, Picard, who everyone thinks is crazy, says, we got to take the ship into the center of this anomaly. And at this point, like, Tasha basically kind of puts her foot down, and she's like, listen, you need to give us some answers about what's happening here. Like, we're all following you, but this is crazy. Like, what are you doing?
And isn't it a cult?
Yeah, are we in a cult now? Are you going to make us drink Kool-Aid? Like, what is happening here? And I have to say, Picard gives a very rousing speech here. Like, to me, this is one of those, like, really great, like, cinematic or TV speeches, like, almost like in Independence Day, that speech that, like, Bill Pullman gives to get everybody all riled up, like, to fight the aliens. Like, this is a really great speech where Picard's like, I know that you don't know what's going on, but I know what your potential is, even though we've only been together for a short amount of time. This is a big thing I'm doing, and I'm asking you to take a leap of faith. And the whole crew is like, I'm sold. And then they all basically follow him into the anomaly. Yeah, I really love his speech here about, like, I know that you're unsure, but I know what you're all capable of. And I thought it was a really great speech, full of confidence, and of course the crew is inspired. They're all behind him.
I wouldn't expect anything less from Jean-Luc Picard.
I mean,
I know.
It is Jean-Luc Picard, so...
He is El Capitan.
Exactly.
Actually, girls, what I've got you. Who is your captain? Who is your number one captain out of all of them?
Oh,
Picard is for me. That's why I was like, we need to do this.
it's so. I know this. I know Picard's your number one captain. This is such a hard question for me because I feel like